Hi, my name is Nikhil Goyal. I'm the author of the book Schools on Trial: How Freedom and Creativity Can Fix Our Educational Malpractice. One of the educational models that is often not mentioned in the conversation around schooling is something called democratic education. Democratic education is actually a very old idea. One of the earliest schools that fit this model of education, it was called a school called Summerhill. Summerhill is a school that was founded in England in the early 1920s. It even exists today. And Summerhill was a school founded by a man named A.S. Neill, who believed that the school should fit the needs of the child rather than the reverse. In that school should really be based on the natural inclinations of children, their curiosity, their creativity, their playfulness, as opposed to discipline, obedience, and standardization. And so he created a school where there weren't going to be any grades or tests or required classes. Children could learn however they want, wherever, whenever, and with whomever they choose. It was a truly radical idea at the time. Summerhill was a boarding school, and it was a school where students really believed that their educational experience could be determined by their own actions and their own decisions and beliefs. It was an authentic, genuine learning community, and one that many educators took heed to. A.S. Neill actually wrote a book in the early 1960s called Summerhill, and that book inspired a movement in the United States to adopt some of the principles of Summerhill called the Free School Movement. And the Free School Movement actually coincided with the entire revolutionary period of the 1960s and 70s, when there was the anti-war movement, the movement for where feminists got involved, where civil rights protesters, student organizers, and education was just another one of those forms of civil disobedience. And what the free school advocates really wanted to do was not just make small little changes or tweaks to the educational structure or the curriculum. They wanted to completely redefine what it meant schooling was like. They wanted to truly radically transform the system from the ground up. And so moving away from standardization and a technocratic kind of society to one that's really based on humanistic values and humanistic society. So based on curiosity, creativity, freedom in learning, and self-direction. And so the free school movement had a lot of success in the United States. There was hundreds of these schools that sprung up during this period of time. The problem was that many of these schools were not always the best, well-managed or well-organized. Sometimes the people who ran them did not have as much experience working with children. And so some of them really did falter over time. But there was a lot of success that happened in the free school movement, and it spawned an entire generation of people who were interested in alternative democratic education. Now, the free school movement died down as the anti-war movement also subsided in the late 1970s and the 1980s. And the movement has recently had grown specifically and ironically in a time of great standardization and corporate education reform, at a time when there's so much standardized testing and so much corporatization of public education, where we have charter schools and value-added assessment and school closures. There is a renewed interest in a new type of education. And in my book, Schools on Trial, I give light and give focus to the modern day forms of democratic education. One of the schools I mentioned in the book is the Brooklyn Preschool, and the Brooklyn Preschool has been around for several years now. And it is a private school, but they have sliding scale tuition. So there is a large percentage of students who pay very, very little tuition or absolutely nothing. And because of this, they attract a very large group of students from all socioeconomic and racial backgrounds. And that's something that I think free schools need to do much better on, because oftentimes free schools, because they are private and they charge tuition, they generally attract a more affluent white population. When in reality, poor black and brown children are generally the ones who need this type of freer experiential form of education, because they're the ones who are often in the regimented charter schools, the ones where they have to wear uniforms and walk in straight lines and be orderly and obedient. They're the ones who need this more freer and creative form of education. So I talk about the Brooklyn Preschool in the book quite a bit, and it's quite a transformative school. I mean, you walk in, there's no metal detectors, there's no security guards, no police officers. The kids are just wandering around the school, engaging in different learning activities. They may be in a class, they may be in a project, or they may be involved in some kind of student organizing committee. There's so much great things going on at this school. There's a democratic meeting where the students weekly come together and vote on school policies, and they have true agency over how their school is run. And because of this, there's very little bullying or harassment in the school. And the reason for this is because the students believe they have a true voice in their educational experiences, and if there are problems, they have the power to fix them. They don't have to rely on adults or some kind of institutional setup. They have the true agency and power to change their setting. So the Brooklyn Free School is one of hundreds of schools like this in the United States. I think they have extraordinary results. I wish many of these schools would expand to more poorer communities, the communities that I think need these educational experiences the most. There's another type of school called Sunbury Schools that have dozens of schools around the United States and the world. But I think this is a movement that is going to grow. It is a movement that is having tremendous power and influence, increasingly so in recent years, and one that I think parents should really take heed to. I think they produce children who are by and large curious, imaginative, self-directed, critical thinkers, and problem solvers, and those are the qualities and people and human beings we would want in our society.